The Baltic Sea is bordered by 8 EU countries, each with its own unique linguistic, cultural and historical tapestry. The Baltic states Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania bring a blend of medieval charm and vibrant modernity, with their historic capital cities of Tallinn, Riga, and Vilnius, bustling ports and rugged coastlines. To the southeast, Poland reflects a dynamic blend of Slavic culture and history with important maritime traffic as a crucial Baltic Sea destination, joining Germany, with its rich heritage of merchant guilds and market towns that dominated trade along the coast of the Baltic Sea for several centuries, particularly during the late Middle Ages. To the west lies Scandinavia, with Denmark and Sweden known for their rich Viking heritage and maritime history. Finally, the Nordic country of Finland, with stunning archipelagos and deep forests, showcases a deep connection to nature and a strong tradition of environmental stewardship. Our Baltic region, with its shared sea, is a crossroads of history and trade, where the interplay of tradition and innovation continues to shape the identities of these coastal nations. Together, our 8 countries form a vibrant community linked by the waters of the Baltic, each contributing to the unique character of this remarkable part of the world, our special corner of paradise. The Big Five. Challenges faced in the Baltic Sea region. The world's largest dead zone is suffocating the Baltic Sea. Oxygen-sucking algae are blooming in the Baltic due to farm fertilizers and overfishing. These blooms are fed by nutrients such as phosphorus and nitrogen from agricultural fertilizers and sewage. When it rains, farm fertilizers are washed into the sea. Sewage treatment facilities also discharge waste into the Baltic ecosystem. As a result, the Baltic is now home to 7 of the world's 10 largest marine dead zones areas where the sea's oxygen has been used up by seabed bacteria that decompose the raining mass of dead algae. Large amounts of algal blooms affect the entire ecosystem. The interconnectedness of the sea's ecosystems demonstrate the impact eutrophication has on the food web. The larger fish, like cod, eat sprats, small herring-like species that eat microscopic marine creatures called zooplankton, that in turn eat the algae. Overfishing causes fish and other sea creatures that eat the algae to disappear, allowing the blooms to grow and spread. Overfishing is when fishing vessels remove fish and other sea creatures from a body of water like the Baltic Sea faster than the species can reproduce naturally, leading to the upset of entire marine ecosystems and the food web. Overfishing poses a major threat to the food supply of millions of people and is disastrous to fish stocks and also to the fishing communities relying on the sea's harvest. The scraping of the ocean floor during commercial fishing operations is devastating to species that need the habitat the sea provides. This destruction alters the functioning of the ecosystem and can permanently alter species composition and biodiversity. Bycatch, the collateral capture of unintended species in the course of fishing, is typically returned to the ocean only to die from injuries or exposure. Bycatch represents about a quarter of all marine catch. In the case of shrimp capture, the mass of bycatch is 5 times larger than that of the shrimp caught. Sustainable seafood is a movement that has gained momentum as more people become aware of overfishing and environmentally destructive fishing methods. Sustainable seafood is seafood from either fished or farmed sources that can maintain or increase production in the future without jeopardizing ecosystems and habitat. The Baltic Sea is one of the most polluted seas in the world, with significant contamination from hazardous substances like heavy metals, persistent organic pollutants, and microplastics. Pollutants enter the sea from human activity, like tourism, industrial discharges, agricultural runoff, urban waste, and shipping activities. When pollutants accumulate in the marine environment, they pose risks to marine life, ecosystems, and human health. They can cause long-term damage to reproductive systems, disrupt endocrine functions in wildlife, and lead to the accumulation of toxins in the food chain, affecting both wildlife and people who consume seafood. Microplastics, in particular, have become a menace to the human food chain. They enter the soil where plants are grown. They accumulate in the food web, as smaller organisms that have ingested them are eaten by larger predators, or are ingested by sea creatures who can mistake microplastics for food. So when humans consume seafood products, they also consume the microplastics the seafood creatures may have eaten. Even salt, harvested from evaporated seawater, can contain microplastics due to the contamination of ocean waters. When consumed as a seasoning or preservative, these microplastics enter the human body. Marine litter is material discarded, disposed of, or abandoned in the marine and coastal environment, and can include metals, plastic, glass, rubber, paper, textiles, and other synthetic materials. Marine litter can come from land-based or ocean-based sources and can be transported by wind, rivers, and ocean currents, eventually accumulating in the marine environment. Marine litter, particularly abandoned plastic gear referred to as ghost nets, is a growing problem in the Baltic Sea, where it can persist for hundreds of years. Fishing nets used to be made from rope. But since the 1960s, they are made from nylon, a material that is much stronger and cheaper. Nylon is plastic that does not decompose. That means that fishing nets lost in the ocean continue to catch fish for many years. Because of this, hundreds of millions of marine animals are killed or injured every year due to fishing nets pollution. Marine litter affects marine life through ingestion, entanglement, and habitat degradation. Microplastics, in particular, can enter the food web, with potential consequences for the health of marine organisms and humans. Plastic pollution also detracts from the aesthetic value of the Baltic Sea, impacting tourism and recreation. Invasive species pose a significant challenge to the Baltic Sea's ecosystem and biodiversity. When introduced into the Baltic Sea, non-native sea creatures can disrupt the natural balance of the ecosystem, outcompete native species, and cause widespread ecological and economic impacts. Ballast water helps to stabilize vessels and maintain balance, and is one of the primary ways invasive species are introduced into the Baltic Sea. When ships take on ballast water in their port of origin, they carry a variety of marine organisms, including larvae, small fish, and plankton that can take over species that naturally exist in the Baltic Sea. Invasive species also attach themselves to the hull of a ship and introduce to the Baltic when the ship arrives in port. Fisheries and aquacultures can also introduce non-native species that have escaped into the wild. In some cases, invasive species are introduced through deliberate or accidental release, like dumping aquarium fish into the sea. Climate change also plays a role in the spread of invasive species. As water temperatures rise, the Baltic Sea becomes more hospitable to species that were previously unable to survive in its colder waters. This can lead to the establishment of species from warmer regions. The health and well-being of the Baltic Sea, along with its interconnected rivers and lakes, is a shared responsibility that transcends borders. As stewards of this vital marine environment, all 8 countries surrounding the Baltic Sea must take collective ownership to protect and preserve its delicate ecosystems. The future of our fisheries, coastal communities, and natural heritage is in the hands of its people. Let's all work together as a unified Baltic community to address the significant challenges related to the Baltic Sea's sustainability and environmental degradation. This will depend on our unified commitment to sustainable practices, pollution control, and the restoration of degraded habitats. By working together, we can ensure that the Baltic Sea remains a thriving and resilient body of water, sustaining life and livelihoods now and for generations to come.